Megan Amelia Waterman, born January 18th, 1988. She left this earth December 13th, 2010. Megan Amelia Waterman went to be with the angels in heaven December 13th, 2010. She was born in Portland, Maine, January 18th, 1988. Megan was a loving, devoted mother, daughter, granddaughter, and sister. She loved music, dancing, beaches, and spending time with the love of her life, her daughter Lily, with whom she spent time doing things with such as reading stories together, watching movies, playing games, and just snuggling. Megan put family first and all else next. She is survived by her daughter Lily, her mother Lorena, her grandparents Muriel and Douglas, her father Gregory Gove and family, her brother Gregory, her sisters Allie, Stephanie, Bethany, and Amanda, her aunts Catherine, Elizabeth, and Ella of the Portland area, and Julie of New Hampshire, her uncle Eli of Michigan, and Gary of Standish. Megan is also survived by her extended family, cousins, nieces, nephews, and countless friends. She will be remembered as a loving, vivacious, caring person by all who knew her. A time of visitations for relatives and friends will be held on Sunday, January 30th, 2011, from 10 p.m. to 4 p.m. A memorial service celebrating her life will follow the visitation at the funeral home. In order to respect a victim, you have to look at their life as it was, not as how it ended. You have to know the person behind the story. Megan Waterman was born in a chaotic world on January 18th of 88. As an infant, she lived with her mother and father under the same roof. However, they were not together, and they also had their romantic partners that lived there as well. And their home was the Days Inn in Westbrook, Maine, just outside of Portland, where they rented by the week. Things weren't easy. Wasn't an easy upbringing. Many people had that upbringing. Her mother, Lorraine, already had a boy, Greg Jr. Megan's older brother was 21 when she was born. Lorraine thought back on her relationship with Megan's father, and she remembered the darker times that they had. She remembered the violence that went both ways. Lorraine knew she was drinking a lot of coffee, brandy, a Maine favorite during the time. When she was 8 months pregnant with Megan, they broke up, and Greg moved out. But not long after giving birth, he showed up with his girlfriend, Karen, and an offer, give us a place to crash, and we'll help with the kids. Lorraine slept in the bedroom of the motel with Megan and Greg Jr., while Greg Sr. and Karen slept on the living room floor. Lorraine's mother, Muriel, began to hear stories that the kids weren't being well cared for. Incidents of inattention, like allowing Greg to toddler near an open oven and heat pouring out, or eat cereal off the floor, or floating around about Megan's family and how her and her siblings were being brought up. But perhaps the most serious were the allegations of neglect and recklessness. That is when Muriel started to insert herself into the situation, calling CPS and telling them to look into it. Lorraine's sisters acted in concert with Muriel, feeding the state information. Lorraine kept avoiding social workers, slipping away on days when they were scheduled to do a home visit. Around this time, she took Megan to the hospital for a respiratory distress. Apparently, the medical team felt uncomfortable with the situation and alerted CPS, which immediately triggered them to remove the children from Lorraine and Greg's care. Megan and Greg Jr. were placed into emergency foster care. Muriel applied for custody. Lorraine was suspicious of Muriel's intentions. Muriel had benefited from a federal welfare subsidy for more than 20 years, and her youngest child was turning 18, leaving no dependents left to claim, jeopardizing her government support. She suspected that her interest in Megan and Greg was financially motivated, instead of how it should have been among family. This crack in the family grew to be a fissure that would estrange them in all ways. To Megan's sudden death 20 years later, it still was a crater in their lives and in their family dynamic. The state agreed, and they put Muriel as the caregiver for Megan and Craig Jr. They were permanently transferred from their foster family to her care, and she raised them to adulthood. Now, Megan herself growing up. Megan and Greg grew up with their Nana Muriel, as we mentioned, as their primary mother figure. Their home was a townhouse-style condo, low-income families, in the thick of downtown Portland, Maine, which anyone that's been in downtown Portland, Maine, knows that it is a beautiful, beautiful place that can give birth to the things dreams are only made of. As they grew older, they became independent, rebellious, and fearless. Greg and Megan were only separated by 1 year and 4 months, and they were one another's full siblings. Though they would often fight, Megan was ferociously loyal to Greg. Greg later said, "It was us growing up, so we grew real close to one another. It's just us. From skating at Happy Wheels to watching Full House and Saved by the Bell before school," which I know many of us did as well, so we'll remember that quite fondly. He says, "We did most everything together. A real funny thing, she got me to play Ken when we were growing up. She never got me to be Barbie, but I got suckered into being Ken." How many of us have memories like that with their siblings? I know I do. Megan went on to school at Rick Elementary until 5th grade. In 2nd grade, she was diagnosed with ADHD. Some of the typical symptoms are running around, climbing when it's inappropriate, excessive talking, difficulty waiting for a turn, interrupting, intruding on others. It's more commonly known now than it was back then, and more commonly understood now than it was back then. Her Aunt Elizabeth said that Megan would frequently pull pranks, she said. One time, Megan pushed a teacher in the pool. I think she just wanted to make kids laugh. She was always very funny. I mean, I've had some times where I've wanted to make people laugh. Pranks on teachers, sure. I'm sure she got a lot of detention too. Muriel later said that what she remembered most about Megan was her vivacious nature. She was just so much fun to be with and be around. It was like she just sparkled. She was very strong-willed, and you always knew where you stood with Megan. She never went behind your back, which is something that's very rare and very hard to find these days. I think that's why she had so many friends and why so many people cared about her, because they knew exactly where they stood. If you ask me, that's everything that a friend could ask for. Just that undevoted honesty and loyalty. Now, a major move, Portland to Scarborough. As Megan was getting ready to enter high school, Muriel and Doug moved to the family from downtown Portland to a trailer park in Scarborough, Maine, called Crystal Park Estates. Megan also lost her companionship of her brother Greg, no longer lived with the family, moving between other relatives and group homes before eventually living on his own. When she started school as an 8th grader at Scarborough Middle School, the difference in wealth was apparent. Kids were walking around with cell phones and designer duds. Megan's family was living paycheck to paycheck. Many of us can relate to that. Megan struggled academically, and when she started at Scarborough High, the following year she was put in the basement, a portion of the school for alternative education. I'm sure you're thinking the same thing I am. What the hell? Megan got caught shoplifting on several occasions from Walmart and became known to Scarborough police. She ended up being sent to Maine Youth Center in South Portland from time to time. It's sort of like a jail for children. It was compromised with a dozen cottages and tight living quarters with strict rules. Doug Weed, an officer with the Scarborough PD, often was the one to arrest her. He remembered her first encounter with Megan was in October of 2002, when another young Scarborough girl made allegations against her of stalking in 2004. A Crystal Park neighbor filed a restraining order against Megan. Doug took a special interest in Megan, and he felt like he could get through to her. He knew that her father was not in the picture, and he tried to provide some guidance and fatherly advice. He would cut her a break now and then out of compassion, and she soon realized how much he cared. He would sometimes give her rides home rather than take her to the station. That man was unique, and that's the kind of man that we all need in our law enforcement areas. Despite his influence, when Megan was 17, she decided to drop out of high school. Life after school. The lines of communication with Doug Weed remained open, though, and Megan would often call, leaving long voicemails, sometimes to rant about something, other times because of serious things going on in her life. Doug felt like his conversations with Megan helped to ground her and calm her. He was an authority figure in her life that was consistently looking out for her, and it helped her feel secure. When Megan became pregnant at 17 in the fall of 2005, she called Doug Weed and told him. The baby's father was nearly twice her age, in his early 30s, and they met at a club in Portland. She was scared. Doug Weed told her it was a blessing. He was a father of 5, and they had given his life greater meaning and purpose. A judge in juvenile court ordered Megan to live at a home for young only mothers called St. Andrews. There were multiple locations in the state in these types of homes, and they were generally run by nuns or other religious leaders. The idea was to get Megan off drugs and alcohol and give her a chance to stay in a safe environment for the duration of her pregnancy. Megan saw how many of the babies were taken away tearfully from their mothers, and it triggered her own trauma of being taken by the state from Lorraine as a child. Muriel tried to console her and assure her that every mom's situation was different, but Megan, for the first time in her life, was terrified. She was thinking of her future child. She couldn't let that happen to her. Liliana may be what changed everything for Megan. At 18 years old, Megan gave birth to a healthy baby girl in the summer of 2006. She was named Liliana. Her daughter changed her priorities and her personality. A peace washed over her. Liliana brought a clarity to her life that 18 years of hard living had not accomplished. People who remembered her temper and violence were awed by the transformation. Sometimes the things that come in the tiniest packages are the best gifts and can change our lives irrevocably. Her brother Greg said Megan loved her daughter. Liliana was everything to her. She took her daughter to the park. They went swimming together. Megan danced with her. It was easy for her to tap into the natural silliness. They'd read together. They'd make snow angels. They were inseparable. Now, Megan qualified for a government subsidy of $400 a month to help support Lily, but she had to figure out a way to survive. She was working at a sandwich shop to make ends meet. Megan continued to occasionally get into trouble. In October of 2008, she was arrested in Scarborough for theft. She was back into drinking and drugs, and her Aunt Elizabeth believes that is likely where she met Robert Blake. He, too, was in the drug subculture of Portland. He told her if she wanted to make some real money to start doing smex work, and she decided to give it a try. The money was good. Soon thereafter, she met Robert's friend and protege, Akeem Cruz. Akeem swept her off her feet. He was a tough guy from Brooklyn. He started managing her smex work, becoming her pimp. He told Megan that he loved her and that he loved Liliana too. They started dreaming of living together, buying a house with the money she was making. But along with Akeem's love came his abuse. Liliana later recalled, "I can remember him hitting her and just crying. He was very powerful, or at least he wanted to appear that way." Anne Elizabeth remembered getting a frantic call from Megan one night after she discovered a gun that had been hidden beneath Liliana's mattress. He was a dangerous guy, and Megan was part of a dangerous world. Akeem started taking her to New York for escort work, where the money was better, and he had the women, Megan included, hide rugs in their body cavities for extra money. I can't imagine what was going through her head. When I read this, I think of her just trying to survive and her trying to think 10 steps ahead and getting hit with a brick wall because he wants something else done and you're scared of how he's going to react. In May of 2010, Akeem and 3 other men were arrested in South Portland, Maine. 2 of the men were from Brooklyn and 1 was from Portland. Police charged Akeem with aggravated rug trafficking. Then came the long, fatal last trip to Long Island. Akeem happened to be out on bail, and in the early summer of 2010, he made his final trip to Long Island with Megan, one she'd never returned from, one that many of you would recognize, videos from the hotel. Videos, the last known footage of Megan ever to be seen again. Memorial Day was on Monday, May 31st of 2010, and the day afterward, Tuesday, June 1st, Akeem and Megan took a bus from Portland to New York City. Megan checked into a room at the Holiday Inn Express, a hotel on Long Island in a city called Hauppauge. Akeem was staying with his family, also nearby in Long Island, while Megan was doing escort work out of her hotel room. After a few busy days, on Friday, June 4th, Megan called her friend Nikki with some news. She told Nikki that Akeem wanted to have a child with her, and as a part of this increased commitment and shared vision of the future, he no longer needed her to do escort work. Nikki later said, "I never heard her as happy as she was that day." For those that have been in abusive relationships, when there's that little glimpse of sunshine on the horizon, and you love that person so deeply, you grab on to that, and that becomes your focus. That becomes what centers you. That becomes what drives you. After a few busy days on Friday, June 4th, during the day on Saturday, June 5th, Megan spoke on the phone with her mom, Lorraine. When later reflecting on her conversation with Megan on Saturday, Lorraine couldn't think of anything out of the ordinary. According to her, she sounded like normal Megan. At 8 p.m., the hotel security camera captured Akeem and Megan leaving the hotel together at 8:30 p.m. Megan returned to the hotel alone at 9:50 p.m. Megan called her grandmother Muriel and spoke to her daughter Lily. According to her Aunt Elizabeth, Megan called her grandmother again around midnight.
On the updated website, we have released video surveillance footage and photos of the last time one of our victims, Megan Waterman, was seen prior to her death. The video shows several different angles from security cameras located in the lobby of the Holiday Inn Express located in Hauppauge. And in the videos, which were recorded on June 4th to June 6th in 2010, Our victim, Megan Waterman, was wearing a yellow sweater and is shown both arriving and leaving the hotel.
According to phone records, Akeem called Megan at 1:15 a.m. and perhaps again at 1:30 a.m. It was also reported that Megan spoke to Akeem, and she told him that she was going out for a little while and would call him later. If so, it might be this call around 1:30 a.m. She grabbed her cell phone and left on foot, leaving the rest of her belongings in the room. Which, if any of you have looked into this, would know that was very, very rare for Megan to do. That wasn't something she did. She did not leave her belongings behind. Security video footage shows Megan leaving the hotel alone at 1:30 a.m. An unnamed law enforcement source said that Megan had arranged to meet with a John without telling Akeem and was headed to meet him at his car. An unnamed witness spotted Megan outside walking towards a convenience store, and that was the last sighting of Megan Waterman. This has been the life of Megan Waterman. From here, we'll go on to her missing and then being found. This information was provided by Suffolk County PD, MurderSheTold.com, and Law School Girls, along with many other literary works done on this topic and this subject and this beautiful person. Like the other three, the night Megan was found, she was found because of another victim, Shannon Gilbert, who called 911. Shannon's 911 call from Oak Beach is what started it all. This is when she became the unsung hero of the Gilgo 4. She triggered this search that ended in finding over 10 bodies along Gilgo Beach, scattered throughout in the brush and in the overgrowth. There were many victims, and none of them more important than the other. And as we've gone through here, you could see each one of them were not just their work. They were not just escorts. They did things for reasons. They were going to school. They were taking care of children. They were doing whatever. They were still people. They were still daughters, sisters, aunts, mothers, cousins. Still someone that was loved regardless of what they did. And no one deserved an end like this. None of them. Now we remember the life of Megan Waterman as it was and as it's to be represented from here on out. Rest in peace. This is just one chapter to the story. There were 11 bodies found, 10 women's stories to be told, and you will hear them here as we revisit the life of the dead, so each one could see them as they lived as an individual, a person, and a fellow human being, ending as a victim.